Welcome back to First Light, where we dive deep into the stories of transformation, resilience, and leadership. Today we have an incredible guest, a man who has fought in the courtroom just as fiercely as he fought for our country. He's a former U.S. Marine, a nationally recognized trial lawyer, and ambassador of the courtroom. It is my honor to welcome Joey Lowe to First Light. All right, Joey, I want to start off by thank you for being on the podcast and sharing your story with us. For those who may not know you, can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure. Well, my name's Joseph Lowe, and my story is pretty much I specialize now in trial work. Fact patterns are going in front of jurors for jurors to solve because the lawyers can't figure it out on our own. But why I'm probably here is because I do it in a very unorthodox way. Let's say it in a very non-lawyer way. And the reason for that is because, heck, when I went to law school, I didn't go because I wanted to be a lawyer. In fact, when I came home and said to my family I wanted to go to law school, they told me to pack my trash and get out of the house. There was no lawyers in our family. Doctors, fighter pilots, were all former military. And as a former U.S. Marine, the only real thing I want to do with a lawyer is punch on a little bit because that feels good, but I sure as hell didn't want to be one. And the reason for the change, or the reason why I wanted to go, is I was a cancer researcher at the time. I was at the University of California, was doing research, got published for discovery had and so forth. And I had an invention along the way, and I got ripped off by a corporation. And I swore vengeance. But I guess I'm nuts. And then I'd sort of run out to look for a lawyer to say, hey, do this for me. I said, no, I'll do it myself. I don't know what if I do everything myself. And so I said, I'll just go to school, read the book, I'll figure it out. And I did that. And that's why I went to law school. And that's then kind of how I ended up here. I mean, this is now, I've kind of dedicated my life to understanding as much as possible about people. It used to be that I was understanding as much as I could about the way the body worked. As a biophysical chemist, cancer researcher, that was where my commitment was. And a biophysical chemist is someone who studies physics within the biological system, or if you will, in humans, and its chemical applications. This means I didn't just break it down in physics and how things work. If you really want to understand how everything works from its smallest particle, you would have to understand it from chemistry, which is the atoms or even subparts of atoms. So that's how crazy I went with it. Well, I guess there's no coincidence that I did the same thing with trial work. And what I figured out is that it's a real commitment to fully embracing what is the human condition. The human condition is not what's wrong with us. The human condition is the way we live. The way we live amongst ourselves, isolated, the way we live with each other, and the way we interact, the more people you introduce into an environment. And there lies everything you need to know about how to pick a jury. And I guess I got pretty good at it, and they started having me just pick juries for people. And they had me teaching these things, and then it expanded now where I'm writing a book about the art of persuasion and how it applies to every facet of our life and every type of job or interaction you can have. So that's how I ended up here.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. Let's talk about your time in the military and how that really has shaped your approach to advocacy and fight for justice. What did that kind of instill in you?
Sure. So I can honestly say with no reservation at all that the vast majority of everything that I have either applied as a trial lawyer for almost 30 years now, or anything I've tried working a case up, preparing for a case, trying it actually in the courtroom, pretty much most of it I learned in the Marine Corps. Yeah, who would have thought? They sure didn't tell me that in boot camp, but I had no idea. What I learned from law school, I forgot it already. Law school's a joke. All right, they don't teach trial lawyers in law school. In fact, I don't really teach lawyers anything in law school. It's really, to me, in my opinion, it's a scam. It's a old traditional system used to try and only gives certain types of people access to the law, which is the same thing as saying is the rules. And if those who know the rules have power, have informational power, clearly you can see where they only want to give certain individuals access to that. So you don't learn how to do anything in law school and then just be somebody else's researcher or write the way they want you to. It's got nothing to do with trial work. Yeah, they do have some classes you can take there and some teams you can, compete on and try out for, but it's not how they should be teaching people to try cases. So that required a lot of commitment and a lot of practice outside of law school. In fact, I taught at a law seminar for law professors only, and the law professors at this seminar were the only law professors teaching trial advocacy, or if you will, trial skills in law schools. And at some point, myself and a few of the instructors, after a number of questions, kind of got the idea that we wanted to ask the question, which was, raise your hand if you've ever actually tried a real lawsuit with a real jury and you waited for the verdict. There was 123 law school professors in the room at that time. Out of the number of people who raised their hands, there were only five. Five. Now, how is it that the majority of law school professors teaching how to do trial skills have never even done a jury trial? That's law school for you. And unlike, say, folks who become doctors, say if you want to be a brain surgeon, neurosurgeon, you have to first, not after medical school, which is 4 years, you have to then go to a residency, is what they call them. That's a word meaning that you have to go to on-the-job training without a license yet. You cannot be a neurosurgeon, but you have to go practice with other neurosurgeons. And at the end of it, you have to become the chief resident, which means then you have to teach all the other residents that demonstrate not only have you been paying attention these last 6 years, but now you can also explain it to somebody else. That's just part of the proving ground before you can get a license to start working as a neurosurgeon. Why don't they require that for lawyers? I mean, think about it. You can represent someone in a criminal court accused of capital murder, which means if they get convicted, you're going to put them to death. Yeah, reason why neurosurgeons have to practice so long for to get a license, because they don't want them killing people. But yet, we can do it with law with no experience. Why is that? Well, it gets into things, including the power structure. Again, that's governments and corporations, and we're not doing that today. But at the end of the day, this is the problem. And this is when a man by the name of Jerry Spence, who's considered probably the greatest trial lawyer ever. In fact, he was inducted into the Trial Lawyers Hall of Fame as the greatest trial lawyer ever, above people like Johnny Cochran, or above people like Clarence Darrow, and some other lawyers you may have heard of. He's the guy. And he actually went around to a number of law schools and said, hey, let me teach how I've been able to get these unusual results that people said are not possible. Let me show you how I win case after case after case. He never lost a civil case. How he's been doing that. And they just said, you're not really our style. They're not going to do it. Well, you can see why now. They don't really teach that. So he said, well, this is information that has to go to the right people. This is information that has to go to those people who fight for ordinary people. This information is so precious that it has to go to people who don't represent the government or corporations. They cherry pick all the best legal talent right out of law school and then conform them and put gold handcuffs on them to make them into what they want them to be. Well, what's left for the ordinary people? And where do they get that specialized training? And there was a duty place for them to go. And so he decided to take his ranch in Wyoming. It's a big 70,000 acre ranch. It used to be a working cattle ranch, one of the largest in Wyoming. He put it into trust and he decided to turn it into a ranch designed to teach lawyers of ordinary people only. You can't come there again if you work for the government. You cannot come if you are a corporate lawyer. You can only come if you represent ordinary people. And there he would share with lawyers from across the world were trying to get him to give them for decades, and he would not. In fact, a place called the Inner Circle, which is supposedly the best trial lawyers, civil trial lawyers in America, money lawyers in America, they said, we want you in our club and we want you to be part of our membership where we hear, we share everything. Like we share what really, really works on how we get all these results with each other, but we're not allowed to give it to anybody else. Jerry said, you mean to tell me that if I come in here and share this with just you handful of lawyers that I can't share with anybody else? And they said, yeah, that's what we mean. He said, well, I'm not going to do that. I refuse. That's disgusting. We should be elevating the bar. We should be elevating the abilities of lawyers who fight for people to have the tools to do that. Why would you keep that a secret? Well, the answer to that. And he started the Thunderhead Ranch. So this is now what I have endeavored to do for the last 28 years now. And that is he asked me to start teaching for him years ago because I'm a little unusual, a little unorthodox. And for some reason, he took me under his wing. And I turned that place into pretty much what I did when I was a cancer researcher. At the University of California, you can't get one of those positions there if you are reinventing the wheel. You have got to make something new constantly. That's what science does. That's what inventors do. That's what research is supposed to move forward, is our understanding of how things work. And so since that's how I was raised in that area, it only made sense that I do the same thing with the law. But everybody else down there was pretty much just trying to memorize or trying to mimic or trying to figure out how Jerry did what he did and then just leave it at that. And to me, that was entry level. I mean, he's the greatest ever. However, if I don't have the attitude of trying to make it better, if I don't have the attitude of trying to figure out not only how it works, but how do we make it better, well, I'm just doing time. I'm contributing nothing. And I'm here to contribute something if that's what I'm supposed to do. At least that's how I was raised. And so for every single part that I did, I mean, year after year, it was a laboratory. You think about this. Haven't you ever wondered what somebody was thinking or feeling, especially maybe right after you said something? Maybe you were wondering what they might be feeling, thinking before you said something. What if I told you that I could show you, not tell you, it doesn't work. What if I could show you how to know the exact right thing to say to the exact right person, and more importantly, at the exact right time? And the right thing to say is not what you want to say. That serves or satisfies your emotional need. Most of the time, you're largely unconscious to. What if I told you that I could show you how you could know what everybody in the room is feeling? Why? Because if you know what they're feeling, you know what they're thinking. And if I told you, what if I could show you how to have people actually almost accuse you of being able to read minds? You think that's possible? Well, it is. It takes some practice, but all you have to do is listen. Jerry Spence taught me that the greatest skill that any trial lawyer could have, no, it's not a closing argument. No, it's not being a great orator. No, it's not having a really powerful cross-examination where you beat the witness up. No, that's called BS for TV. He taught me and was able to prove and show that the greatest skill you can have, not only as a trial lawyer, but as a person, is the ability to listen. To listen to what's not being said. To listen to the feelings that are producing the words that aren't getting expressed. To listen to the emotions that produced the words and those emotions that are covered by what we call secondary emotions. Because once you understand what the person is feeling, because you listen, which requires you to be quiet, to stop running your mouth, then what happens is you begin to vibrate on the same energy level that they do. And once that starts happening, then you have a connection with them. Once you have a connection, or we call empathy, then you can understand who you are talking to in that moment. That doesn't mean you know everything there is to know about them, but what it does mean is you know where they are at right now. And if you knew what emotional content they're experiencing at any given moment, and you knew how to listen to it and accept it without judgment or being judgmental, and then you could actually, with the same energy level, with the same vibration, and with the same empathy, talk to them where they're at in that moment, what you will find is something very magical that happens. And that magic is something that we show how to do and teach at the ranch. Now, I have a lot of corporations asking me to teach their staff, from the CEO all the way down to Salesforce, how to do. A couple people figured out, like, we've heard you winning some cases, Joseph, criminal cases that are beyond reality, I guess is how they say it. Murder cases where they should have been convicted, yet somehow you're able to convince the jury not to. And if you can convince a jury not to convict that person over there, I'm going to believe that you could probably convince us how to sell something a lot more attractive than someone accused of murder. Well, that's coming. I'd like to look at it. Never thought of it that way. But I started doing it, sharing these things that I've learned in this laboratory I created on this ranch for the last 28 years. And what do you know? It's applicable everywhere. Why? I'll say the end of it is. Life is about relationships. And for a hardcore physical chemist, let me tell you, that was not easy for me to swallow or even to believe in or waste any time trying to figure it out. Especially being a former Marine, I'd rather we just knuckle up and go figure it out rather than, sit around and talk about it. But I was wrong. I'll prove it to you right now about why this works. I'll prove it using physics. In physics, which is nothing more than the explanation of everything going around you, everything in your environment is physics. Because it's just the understanding of how things work. In physics, everything has a vibrational energy because they're made of atoms combined into communities called molecules, combined into large communities called materials. Okay, everything's an atom, molecule, etc. Every atom has an energy, a vibration energy, which means every molecule does, all your way up. Now, here's the proof further. Take a piano. A piano is a percussion instrument. That's right. It doesn't look like it, but it's a box full of strings. The strings have different thicknesses. They're made of wire. And the different strings have different tensions pulled on them. Each one has been tied to two anchor points, and if you twist them, the string gets tighter or looser. Now, once you've tuned that string or tightened it to where you want it, and you hit it with a velvet covered or felt covered mallet, which is what a piano does. You hit the key, mallet hits the string, it makes a noise, it vibrates. Your ears are designed to be able to pick up that vibrational energy. Those are facts. Those are physics. There's no way to argue any of that. It just is. What am I saying about that? When you come in to tune, say, the C string or the C note is on the keyboard, you take a piece of metal. It's called a tuning fork. It looks just like a piece of metal. Two metal rods can come, and that piece of metal has been cut and polished and sanded in a way so that when you strike it, you hit a piece of metal, you can hear it vibrate, and it's in a perfect pitch for that C. Then what you do, while it's vibrating, you hold it next to the string, and you strike the key so the string vibrates, and you use your hearing, or if you will, an instrument, until those two vibrational energies are matched or perfect. Now that they're perfect, the C string on your piano is perfectly tuned for that vibrational energy. Okay, here we go. Once you get that C string perfect and you strike it and vibrates, guess what else happens? Every other piano in the room where the C string has been properly tuned begins to vibrate on its own. Yes, how is this like, people? Understand? Here's the answer. Once you introduce an emotion to somebody who is willing to listen and to be what they call empathetic or open, then what happens is that every other person who is attached and listening will begin to have that same emotional feeling. Doesn't mean it'll be to the same degree or the same, if you will, concentration or severity or dilution or softness, but they will be able to feel it. Sometimes you hear people refer to that as being sympathetic. Well, yes, we're not getting there on that one. It's different, but this is really called empathy, which means I understand where you're coming from. I can feel what you're saying. Doesn't mean I agree with it. Doesn't mean I've had the same experience, but we have all in our lifetime felt one emotion or another. So for example, you felt joy? Clearly. Happiness? Sure. Sadness? Probably. Frustration? Sure, quite often. Anger? Fear? Doesn't matter what the emotions are. Those are things that everyone has experience with. So now when I start with a principle that I want to share with you, and if I do it in a narrative such as, well, January 13th at 2:05 p.m. in the afternoon, I was walking down the street, and at that time I encountered a situation where a car drove by and it really caused me to get afraid. Now, are you feeling fear right now? No. Why? Because I attempted to share the information, the emotion in a narrative, which are just facts that have no life. You feel nothing. Here is the difference in what I'm talking about and how you can ensure that everyone feels the same. I was about ready to step off the street corner. It just seemed like any other day. It was in the afternoon. It was around 2 or so. I don't remember, but I do remember this, and I'll never forget it. It was weird. Just had this overwhelming feeling something bad was going to happen. I mean, I actually got afraid, like anxiety, and that's not me. I was a dangerous person, but I got that way, and what? That's odd. I mean, what? I don't understand why I'm feeling this way, but I can't deny it, but I need to just get over it. And I started to step off the curb, and I didn't like it. I felt this arm come across my chest. At first, it felt like someone loved me, but yet it wasn't a hug. And all of a sudden, it felt more like a railing or on a fence you're leaning into, but yet I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. And I looked to my right, and it was a person who wasn't even looking at me, and they had their arm extended. And they were looking down the road, and I'll never forget that look on their face. It was like they were watching something horrific or grotesque as if someone was being dismembered almost. You see looks like that from people in the military during horrible times. And as I just watched it, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. From behind and passing across my face, and now comes into my view, is a car going too fast. I can't even hear it, even though it should be making a lot of noise. There's smoke as it's spinning past me. And it's out of control. And it crashes into a parked car. I listen to those voices now when they tell me things like, don't step off the curb. No, time out. Have I told you really anything different in this story? I added some different facts, but the story is the same. And you can see how normally the story is told through narratives because that's the way people are taught. And they give you no information. And it's very difficult to remember the stuff they gave you, the day, the time, the afternoon. It just doesn't mean anything. But in the second part, you learn probably not much other than I'll never forget that look on his face. It's an emotional experience. It's not overwhelming. It's not the kind where you're gonna go lay on the ground and suck your thumb and cry. But you could feel the story because you're not.
I was ready to give you whatever you asked for.
That's the point, is understanding how to share things with people that they already feel. Let me say that again. Sharing parts of the story you've come here to give them and share with parts of them that they already know. It may not make a lot of sense right now, but therein lies the key to everything you need to know about how to persuade anybody of anything, anytime. You have to understand what part of them to be talking to at any given time. You have to be able to understand how to change their emotions, how to change their emotional content, how to give them truth, but all of it, which means you have to spend an enormous amount of time trying to figure out and then look for what is the truth as opposed to just facts on the list. And once you've been shown to do that, or show how to do that, it's actually fairly easy because you're already built to do it. There's the other beautiful thing about this. It's not some gift you're born with that you didn't get. You're not Usain Bolt, an amazing sprinter. You don't have to be, another Olympic athlete was given gifts that most of us can't even understand. Like these swimmers. These swimmers are amazing things. Or these endurance athletes who can somehow run with nothing more than a pair of lungs, a pair of legs, and a huge heart. There's nothing else on them, but yet they run all day. I don't even understand those people. They're so amazingly gifted. You don't need any of those things. Every single one of us is born with the ability to listen and to feel. All we have to do is stop concentrating only on what we're feeling. And there lies the gift and the how to and everything you need to know about how to do these things. Does that make sense?
No, it's amazing. And Joey, every time I hear you talk and I'm around you, I've been fortunate enough to be able to see you speak on numerous occasions and loved it. And I was fortunate enough to send my director of litigation out to the ranch. But I want to talk about, how you learn that, because truly, like you said, in law school, and when I graduated law school and I tried over 200 jury trials now, it was that narrative. Let me read the probable cause affidavit and evidence, essentially. you know, on this date at this time, the officer came in contact with, and that was very much law school and very much the first years of practice. So, do you believe that people can learn this, and how do people go about learning this? Not just for trial work, because, like you said, it's not applicable only to trial attorneys, but really into everything we do. And one example, we recently had our leadership retreat, and we hired one of the psychologists who works at the ranch to come and do a sociodrama and guide us through some role playing, which was an absolutely amazing experience. We all walked away from that experience learning so much, a full day of that. So, can you talk to kind of how people can learn this skill and how they can develop this skill?
Sure. So the way they can learn it, well, that we're teaching it now, like somebody doing it for quite a while, and definitely know the words because they keep coming back, is that we start with a process where we use some tools that a very, let's call it, specialized area of psychotherapy or psychologists or psychiatrists actually use. It's really not a form of treatment in those areas. It's a tool for those professionals to learn things about the person they're working with. It's called psychodrama. And it was developed by a gentleman by the name of Reno a number of years ago. And the premise for psychodrama is that you would use reenactments to go back in time and to relive what the event, traumatic event usually, was that occurred so that you could then explore more areas of it. And through that exploration, learn even more about the event than you may have been aware of at any given time. For example, you go and do a reenactment of a car crash at a collision site at maybe an intersection. Maybe you want to know more about, what they saw, what they heard, what they smelled, what they felt, what the elevation was, what the terrain looked like. All these little things have the truth I was telling you about that you have to commit to go and find. Because when you can tell the emotional content of any of those facts that you won't get out of a police report, believe it or not, you get some, but not all of them. Now you're telling the whole truth. So psychodrama is a method used to be able to do that. But what you're talking about is one area of psychodrama, sociometric exercises. And that is a discovery of how people's feelings change when they're in group formations. Here's what that means. For example, we're sitting in a room by ourselves. We're going to be left alone with our own brain and our own thoughts, and who knows where that goes, right? Now, if you then put a person in the room, that other person who's already in the room, their energy is going to change. I don't mean their energy level like on a caffeine drink. Energy level means what they're feeling inside. Depending on your energy, depends on your attitude, it depends on the emotions you experience, it depends on your thoughts. I guarantee you that you put a person in the room by themselves for 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then I bring somebody in the room with no words, it will change your thoughts and change your feelings, just the way it is. Now, think about it. If the person, you know them, you love them, you're going to have some predictable responses. If you don't know them, never seen them before, and you're comfortable, you're going to have a different experience, emotional experience altogether. Doesn't matter. Sociometrics is a study of that. Now bring a third person in. Now bring a fourth person in. Now overcrowd the room. Maybe you bring 5 people in. You develop relationships amongst the 6 of you now. Really good ones over a period of time. And for no reason at all, you have somebody come to the room, grab one of the people, take them out, they're gone. And yet you got to just keep going, whatever you're doing, and leave it unsaid. You don't think that'll change the energy room, taking people out as well? Guarantee it will. Then you have people in the rooms make choices such as, all right, now we have 6 of us in the room. What I'd like to do now is have you go put your hand on the shoulder of the person who, if you had to kick somebody out of the room, this would be your choice. Well, yeah, it's getting real now because now you have to be confrontational and honest and open about some things you feel that you would never ever say because it's not, socially polite. And then watching that happen, and in the moment when everyone makes a choice, you'll actually be a group formation. A formation that actually looks like a lot of lattice structures I study when I'm doing chemistry again. I have to figure out what the predictable molecules going to look like when these certain atoms get together and have predictable formation types of what kind of structure will they make when they get together. Well, guess what? Social exercises has the same formations. They start to look the same after you do them enough. And I've done them over and over and over. I do them at the beginning of a focus group. I do them in the middle of a focus group. I do them at the end of the focus group. And you can always tell right away what they're feeling based on the formations that they have. It's absolutely brilliant. And you're like, wow, that don't make any sense, but it does. You're just not aware of it. And what we do and what psychodrama helps do is pull that curtain down or to the side so you can see what's going on. You can see what's going on inside people and how they're feeling. And you get to control the changes in what they're feeling and experiencing so you can start and stop right away and check in. What are you feeling right now? And that's one of the first things we have to train you to do when you come here is to be aware instantly of what you're feeling. I mean, all the way down. And most people have no idea, none. And they definitely don't know how to put it into words because it's not easy, believe it or not. It's kind of got its own vocabulary. You got to memorize it. We just don't know how to do it very well. And then you always get the man types. You're like, I don't talk about emotions. Okay, well, unfortunately, you're no different than any other human being. You feel them. You just aren't, you have no experience expressing them. So there's really not a huge difference, believe it or not, between men and women. I mean, some people feel things more than others. Honestly, the ones who do, they have incredible gifts of intuition that allow them to see things and hear things that the other ones can't hear or are tuning into as well. Anyway, so the point is, this is how sociometric exercises work, what they teach you, and then now you go out in town. I mean, imagine going to a cocktail party. Maybe you got your gal with you, maybe you're by yourself, and you walk into a room, and what if I told you I could show you how to walk in a room and you can look around the room and tell what everybody's feeling? They're like, well, how's that possible? I'm so easy. Look at the group formations. Well, what do those mean? No problem. I've seen them a million times before. Here's exactly what they mean. And people look and said, that's bullshit. It doesn't work. You can't block them. No problem. I'll tell you what they are. Write them down if you want to, and then we'll go one by one. I'll ask a few questions, and let's see if I'm anywhere close. And if I'm wrong, I'm good. At least I'm going to learn something. Like I said, I guess I've done it enough where I go up, ask a few questions. What are you guys talking about? They'll say, well, how'd that make you feel, this topic? And people start going, and I'm looking at the person, they're just like, they're going like, it's not that hard. It really isn't. It's not anything other than, are you listening? And I've had an enormous amount of experience doing it because I purposely wanted to learn these things. So this is why I've trained the psychodrammatists to use these tools that they do begin or learn when they do their coursework, but how to apply them to what the lawyers are doing or people so we can use them as better excavation tools to unearth what people are feeling so that you know what they're thinking so that you can talk to them.
One thing, we talked about law school and how they don't teach you a lot or prepare you a lot, right? So, as I, ventured into the practice of law, and I was an employee for many years as a state attorney, and then as a private attorney, and then I started my own firm. Well, one thing law school doesn't teach us how to run a business. Teaching us how to be a leader of organization, and that's true for a lot of professions as well, doctors and so forth. They go out and start their own practices. So how does what you have learned and what you teach apply to a business owner and to a leader? And what would you say like the practical steps or step one for someone who's a leader of an organization to take some of what you've learned and apply it to their business?
That's a good question. And it's a good question because if we don't know how to apply what we know, if we don't know how to give and share what we've learned, then we're useless. You see that with a lot of scientists, a lot of cancer researchers. Man, they're great in the lab. And yeah, they can be inventive and move beyond what they learned themselves. But they had no ability to really write it down well or to share it well or explain it or to write a paper on it or go and do a lecture on it. Just weren't able to do that. So it dies. The information doesn't go where it should. So here for CEO types and for managers of people, large groups of people or just one, what you really want to learn is what I learned at the Marine Corps, which by coincidence, I suppose, is considered to be the finest organization in the world at teaching leadership skills. The Marine Corps has spent decades, over 11 years, figuring out what leadership principle are their combat officers or their combat leaders need to have so that brave men and women will follow them into combat and risk their life and still do what they're told. I mean, think about it. If you have the power and ability to tell some people who are looking to you they need to run over there and attack that machine gun nest, which is likely going to kill them before they even get 2 or 3 feet. And they do it without question. You might say the person that had the ability to persuade them to do that might have a gift that you might be able to learn something from. Yes? The reason why they're able to do that and command that is because of the respect that they earned before the machine gun nest popped up. And that came from leadership traits that were developed, displayed, and utilized to lead these people because people will only follow people they respect. Yes, you can intimidate people, as always means you have to use fear to do it. But the problem with that leadership skill is that usually that's the one that people who have no experience with leadership use or utilize to motivate or try incentivize people because they're afraid that the person's not going to do what they want the way they want it. And so they think that since they're afraid, the next emotion that comes from fear This is one of the things you learn at the ranch and other places, that fear always causes anger. Okay. And so then they get angry, and that's when you start threatening, and then you start, saying, I'm going to do things if you don't do what I want. And it breaks down. You can't keep that up for a sustained period of time. It's good for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, maybe even a year. But you'll never get what's called pure commitment from love. You can get commitment from fear, but it will never last as long or be as powerful as the kind of commitment, unconscious commitment, you'll get from someone who loves you. Now we're starting to see the picture a little bit better. I can see the leader say, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that as leader of this institution, organization, that I got to get the folks to love me and then they'll do what I want? The answer to that is no. Wait a minute, like this, what you just said. Here's what I'm saying precisely, and this is a feeling that you're going to have to experience because it doesn't translate from head to head very well. And it does this. If you want people that are in your organization who are supposed to follow you or you're supposed to lead them, then what you need to do is you have to be willing to love them first. And then you have to be willing to trust them first. It doesn't work so well if you just walk in a group of people and demand that they trust you, like they have to give it to you, like they owe it to you, like you're entitled to it. If you think you're entitled to anything because you've given yourself a title or somebody else gave you a title, we have an expression for that in the Marine Corps. And a simple version of it is that you can have title, called rank, or respect. Which one of the two would you choose? And the answer to that depends on which one of the two would you rather have? Now, if you want the rank without the respect, you will find that you are completely useless. And people will do what you say to some degree, but they regret it, or they don't want to do it, or they'll be half-assed about doing it most of the time because you didn't get the respect. You were given the title, but you didn't earn it. So this is what I'm saying about why you have to love them first and trust them first, because you have to be willing to earn their respect. And if you have judgment for them, where you believe that you're superior to them because the title or the rank gave it to you, or maybe your self-proclaimed identity of, oh, I have more experience than you, therefore you must respect me. Yeah, good luck with that. They'll see how far they follow you when things get really bad, when self-preservation kicks in. And when self-preservation kicks in, then you'll find out who you are. You either spend the time trying to help them live and elevate them so that they respect you and you earned it, or you're going to find out how little they really care about you now the pressure's on. This leadership skill and understanding all starts with your commitment to somebody other than yourself. And there lies a key principle to everything that deals with how the quality of life you live personally, and most importantly, the quality of the relationships that you develop at work, in your job, at the grocery store, at home, significant others, parents, children, it matters not. What if you showed up to every single relationship, especially new ones you're about ready to form, with the commitment and the attitude and the emotional energy of saying, I'm going to love first, I'm going to trust first, and I'm going to earn their respect because I'm not superior to anybody. But I can learn something from everybody if I'm willing to give first. And that doesn't mean now I got to get taken advantage of or I get manipulated. It doesn't mean I check my common sense at the door. No, you still got to make the right decisions and have the right judgment. You've learned that it's an attitude about the relationship you're getting ready to start. Give more than you take. Listen more than you talk. and inspire their elevation. Don't make them dependent on you. Show them, not tell them how they can be better than what they may think you are, or may think what your title is, or whatever dream they're trying to get to. Find a way to make that a reality for them at your own expense. I don't mean money necessarily, I mean your emotional commitment. And they will feel that you care about something bigger and more genuine than you. And now you're leaving. Yeah. Everybody else out there is taking. That's one of the ways that would suggest that folks starting at the top, thinking they're looking down, get on their knees and start looking side to side and elevating everybody else.
That's so powerful, Joe. I mean, I'm oh man. Last thing for you. You mentored so many young lawyers, and mentored a lot of great lawyers. What's the kind of the best, or what's the best advice you'd give to those, starting out in the legal career, starting out as young attorneys? What's that? And not even that, just starting out in the business world. Let's do that. What's the best piece of advice that you give?
The advice I guess I'm going to give would explain why I have a $0 marketing budget. I've never spent a penny on marketing, and everyone tells me I'm an idiot, and I'm sure they're right. Especially today, where it was on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Hell, I don't even know what all the things are anymore. TikTok, I guess now I'm so old I can't even figure it out. And what they're doing is they're constantly putting things out there. They're trying to get them noticed. They're doing more and more things, and the more you watch them, I guess the more they get motivated or incentivized to be as ridiculous as possible. And I've found that with a lot of lawyers, they have bought into the belief that fake it until you make it is an acceptable way to conduct yourself. And I suppose that some of these marketing lawyers would argue against me aggressively when I say that is the worst thing you can do. I was brought up to believe, especially in the law, and this started actually at law school because I had a really, really good professor who had over 200 jury trials. And he said that the only value you have, the only virtue that really exists in a courtroom, especially if you want to be a jury trial lawyer, is credibility. Yeah, credibility. It's a virtue you don't hear about too much anymore. And it's certainly what you watch from today's day and age seems to have no value. Well, I can tell you, having been around a lot of places and done a lot of different things, it is absolutely true. You without credibility is a watered down version. It is a transparent version of what you could have been. It is a vapor. It's a smoke. It's a shape with no form. You can't lift anything with it because it has no real substance. If you want to be the best, if you want to not just what everybody else is doing well, but better, well, then you have to have the ability to have credibility, which means you have to practice it every single day. Yes, practice it. Why? Because everyone else out there is doing the exact opposite. And there's so many incentives. Oh, just exaggerate a little bit. Just add a little bit. Just why? Because everybody else is doing. That's how you get noticed. Who's gonna know the difference? It'll get you money. And once you erase that line in the sand, then it becomes a habit. And I've had a number of students who had a lot of talent. They have a lot of gifts that maybe some other lawyers don't have. They could have gone places that were incredible, but they became addicted to the money. They became addicted to fame. They unconsciously, without even realizing it, made the one thing they wanted to pursue more than anything was attention or recognition. And if you were unconscious, to what the needs of recognition can do to change your behavior, which means then your decision making, which then means your power of rationalization to make everything. Of course, why wouldn't you do that? It's a perfect thing to do. That's what the power of rationalization will do. Once you've lost your way, you don't have a code anymore. Fake it until you make it. Here's my question for those of you who are faking it until you make it. At what point do you start practicing credibility, saying it as it is, being open and honest, about being vulnerable? Because there's a huge power in your ability to be vulnerable, which means open and honest. That means vulnerable is that you're not putting that energy out that says, hey, notice me, look what I can do. Everybody pay attention to me. I want you to see that really brilliant. That's ridiculous. That energy is so unattractive that people are going to do the exact opposite, and yet you're fooling only you. If you've practiced faking it your entire life, do you think you know how to be honest? I mean, truly honest? I mean, the kind of honest that people aren't even quite knowing what to say to you because no one's usually that honest with them. And you think that your light is bright, or as bright as it could be, if you were credible? Faking it till you're making it means you're lying to yourself. And then you make some kid a lie to everybody else, because now you believe it. And if you're practicing lying all the time, and that's your default behavior, especially when you're afraid, and it's the fear of not having enough, it's a fear of scarcity, it's a fear that you're not good enough, it's all these fears combined that are causing you to make those decisions, to behave that way. Do you think that fear is just something going to go away one day because now you suddenly tell yourself, oh, I have made it? Now I don't have to fake it? No. That becomes your go-to ego personality, and that's what you'll always do, is fake it. And there are people right now in fact political places where you can clearly see they're not being real with you. And ask yourself, how does that make you feel about them? And how much does that make you want to trust them? And how much does that make you want to follow them? If we don't trust people, we don't follow them. If we don't follow them, they're not leaders. They may own the business, but there's a huge difference between being an owner of a business and a leader. That's how I answer that question.
I can't thank you enough. It's you hit on so much there at the end. The fake it till you make it. I mean, there's so much of that that comparison where you're always competing against other people. And once I kind of let that go and realized I wasn't competing against other people, I didn't have to prove anything to anyone else. It was just really about being authentic to myself and finding credibility. That's where things really changed for me in such a big way over the last 2 years. That's been just life-changing, life-altering. So I know I wish I'd had that advice earlier because it might have I might be in a different place or might have got to a different place earlier in life than I thought. But I can't thank you enough, Joey, for your time. I could sit here and talk to you for hours because every time I'm around you, I feel like I just learned so much. So I want to thank you again for being on First Light, for sharing the art of persuasion, sharing your story. I know that I was inspired from this conversation. I'm sure that everybody that listens will be too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I want to say to you real quick, please keep pushing hard to share these gifts with those who need them. There are not enough people like you who care enough to take the time to give rather than just stay. And this is a gift, hopefully, at least not me, but the other things you're doing to give to people, give them access to information is a gift. That's a leader. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Joey. I appreciate it. Joey, this conversation has been nothing short of inspiring. Your journey, your passion for justice, and your commitment to storytelling in the courtroom are powerful reminders that real change happens when we step up and fight for what's right. Thank you for sharing your story and wisdom with us today. And to everyone listening, keep pushing forward, keep standing for what you believe in, and as always, keep shining your light.